Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Optimum Living show. So, the first episode is going to be on marathon training. I thought it was quite topical since on Sunday I ran the Yorkshire Marathon. So, I did 26.2 miles, and yeah, it was good. Overall, it was a fantastic experience that I'd recommend to anyone. On the day we showed up, we performed, credit to my training. The weather was beautiful. Carb loaded the day before. It was great. So I'm really glad that I managed to pull it off in such an elegant fashion. There were no injuries during the run. I made sure to stretch and fuel properly. Basically, it was smooth sailing for most of the 26.2 miles. I would say that the last couple miles were a bit gruesome. Well, not gruesome, but they were just a bit more uncomfortable than the rest of the race, as was expected. But apart from that, yeah, it was great. Really, really good time. Definitely would recommend. The best high I've had in a long, long time. I'll get on to my experience and we'll dive deeper into my thoughts surrounding the event later on in the show. But now I'm just going to introduce episode 1 of the Optimum Living podcast. So in this episode, we're going to embark on an in-depth exploration of the art and science of marathon training. This will most likely be the first installment of a multi-part series on marathon training because it's quite an extensive topic. This episode will predominantly cover the basics. And when I say the basics, it will cover all the basics. So it's not like just going to be a simple video with bullet points. It's going to be quite an extensive breakdown of the basics. And if there are some terms that I use, I will be trying my best to explain those specific terms and define them as best I can. What's good for you and what's good for me as well is that I'm going to be following the science. This is going to be predominantly a science-based show, obviously providing the latest literature and trying to be as accurate as possible to find what most people would consider to be the objective truth behind a lot of complicated fitness topics. However, today we're trying our best to make the extensive marathon basics as simple as we possibly can. And if there are any confusions, I will address them in a later episode. But the following episodes will probably be more complex and to do with the kind of more intricate details surrounding marathon training and endurance training in general. But I thought this episode, it was very topical considering, I've just run a marathon. So yeah, I'm fresh off that. So it's fresh in my mind and I'm more willing to go into depth about it. And I thought that would in turn benefit the people viewing if I'm a bit more kind of knowledgeable surrounding a certain topic. I don't have to do as much research and I can, not just predominantly give you anecdotal feedback, but I can always relay my thoughts and my experience and give tips out, relay stuff that I found useful, training tips, dietary tips, supplement tips, recovery protocols, whatever it may be. Okay, so this show will not just state what you should do without explaining why you should do it. Ignorantly following a routine will not help you sustain a routine. It's best to know why you're following that routine, in my opinion anyway. For others, ignorance may be bliss. They may just be able to kind of robotically follow a routine without actually knowing why they're doing it. That's okay for some people. They just have that kind of like worker mentality. They can fully do that and, credit to those people. But personally, I enjoy knowing why I'm doing a certain thing. I think that's extremely useful. Okay, so in this episode, we shall discuss what the science says, but we'll refer to the fact that tailoring your marathon preparations to fit your individual needs is extremely important. Okay, so today, Optimum Living shall be your compass through the intricate landscape of marathon preparation. We will leave no aspect untouched, as we will navigate through the latest scientific insights, offering comprehensive guidance on how to excel in marathon training, from meticulously designed training regimes and precise nutritional strategies to advanced recovery techniques and the judicious use of supplements will equip you with the knowledge you need to ultimately succeed. Before we discuss the vital marathon training protocols, let's first get real simple. What is a marathon? A marathon is a long-distance running race with an official distance of 26.2 miles, 42.2 kilometers, or 1.6 million inches. The race is named after the Greek town of Marathon, where, according to legend, a messenger named Pheidippides ran from the town of Marathon to Athens in 490 BC to deliver the news of a Greek victory over the Persians in the Battle of Marathon. modern Olympic distance and Windsor Castle. Okay, so the modern Olympic marathon distance was standardized at 42.195 kilometers during the 1908 London Olympics to accommodate the course at Windsor Castle. It has been the standard distance ever since that. So marathons are known for their challenging nature, requiring significant physical endurance and mental toughness. They are typically conducted on roads or on a combination of roads and trails, and they attract both elite athletes competing for top honours and recreational runners seeking to complete a marathon, or PR. Marathon racing has become a popular and prestigious event in the world of running, with major city marathons such as the Boston Marathon, New York Marathon, the London Marathon, and I suppose the Yorkshire Marathon. Completing a marathon is a significant accomplishment and a goal for many runners and fitness enthusiasts. Now we're going to just quickly explain how to enter a marathon very quickly, because I felt like it was a useful piece of information to include. Because some people, I don't know, they may be put off by actually entering a marathon because they are confused about the entering process and whether you get free entry or you have to pay for it. How much does it cost to pay for it? Regular stuff like that. Is it as simple as you just press enter and you're entered? Sometimes it's not really the case. Sometimes you have to enter a ballot and then you're chosen out of a hat and then you decide whether you can enter or not. But yes, we're going to explain that quickly. Okay. So some are different from others. The London Marathon, for example, it's a very prestigious event, very well known. It's an illustrious event that everyone and their granddad wants to compete in. This means that if you want to enter, your name has to be chosen from a hat. It's in the sense that when you sign up on the website, you will enter into a ballot, and when the time comes around each year for your name to be chosen, or everyone's name to be chosen, you may or may not be selected from that ballot. And if you're not, you're going to have to try again next year. And if you are, best hope you've been training, or you should get to training real soon. So for less attended events, you won't be entered into a ballot. You'll just enter straight on the website and pay, or just sign up for free, whatever it may be. And then you're registered, you're done, you're entered. Train, have fun. The cost of entry, some events are free, but most events hosting the marathon distance require payment. Sometimes the event offers a charity entry, as I just said, like a free charity entry, which means you won't have to pay as long as you raise money for charity. That was the case when I participated in the Bournemouth Half Marathon in 2022. So they had a charity entry option and it was free entry. So I was like, well, and I can also raise money for charity, which is a good thing, two good things. So I thought I'd just do that. But you have to raise money for charity. I don't believe there was a minimum amount that you had to raise. I'm rather unsure of that. But I believe in some cases there has to be, because, some people would just, they do it for free, say they're going to raise money for charity, set up a fundraising page and, not look back at it or check on it or actually promote that they're doing the race and try raise as much money as possible. There'll be some people that actually do that. But not me. When I did the Bournemouth Half Marathon in 2022, I believe I raised about £700 for it, which is pretty good going. For this year, I raised money for the same charity, Alzheimer's Research UK, once again, and I've raised £1,070, I believe, at the moment. And my goal was £1,000, so very good, brilliant. Thank you to everyone that donated. If you are indeed watching this, it's important to remember that not all events offer the free charity entry. For example, this year, as I said, I was training for the Yorkshire Marathon, and although I raised money for a charity, they didn't have a charity entry, so I still had to pay for it. I believe I paid £40. Other events are more expensive than others. For example, London, because it's so illustrious, you don't know whether you're actually signed up for it or not. Your name will be chosen out of a hat, plus it's more expensive. So for the Yorkshire Marathon, I paid £40 to enter, but the London Marathon, you pay £69.99, I believe. And if you're an international entrant, it's more expensive at £146, okay? So extreme triathlons such as Ironmans and Scotsmans, they'll be a bit more expensive because obviously it costs you more to actually enter, but then the equipment that you'll need will set you back a lot of money, plus travel expenses and all that sort of stuff. So, because I'm not entirely sure if people have road bikes and wetsuits, tip-top quality road bikes and wetsuits, mind you, just laying about their house. Obviously, they're going to have to factor that in when they actually sign up for it as well. So to give you a ballpark of how much an Ironman triathlon will probably be, you'll be paying around £500 before kit and travel expenses, etc. Okay, so your running package, say you've signed up for the marathon or whatever you're doing, you'll then most likely be sent a running package by the event organizers. Okay, so once you're officially signed up for the event, between then and event day, you should receive your race day essentials pack, which usually comes in the form of your race number card, pins to attach it to your shirt, your running shirt when you're actually doing the race, number card, and a bag tag if you have bags to drop off before the actual race in some lockers that they'll have for you there. Starting a fundraising page. So for example, if you did a charity entry, or you just did a paid entry, but you're also raising money for charity, like a lot of people do, you're probably going to have to start a fundraising page yourself. But if you do a charity entry on the website being where you actually sign up for the event, not the website of the charity. So you sign up for the event on the event website, okay? But they may have an option for a charity entry. When you do that, the charity will be alerted that you're raising money for them and may help you set up a fundraising page. However, that might not be the case. For example, it wasn't the case for me when I signed up for the full marathon. Okay, so I just did regular entry, and separately, I'd started a fundraising page and raised money for Alzheimer's Research UK. So I got in contact with them and I was like, I'm going to raise money for you. You know, this is proving that I'm actually doing the event. Going to start a fundraising page. And then we just got in contact and they were, well chuffed about that. Most of the time, they'll be alerted and they can help you set up the fundraising page. Or if you are really clueless, you just can look it up. So I'd go to places like Just Giving, for example, GoFundMe, Total Giving, and create a page there, ensuring to add details about why you created the page, why you chose that specific charity, etc. Okay, it's just good for people to know, like if they know why you're raising money for that charity and you've got a bit of history with the charity or the disease or condition or whatever the charity is supporting, there's some sort of connection there between you and that. It's good to know. It's good for people to know why. Okay, gets them a bit more invested in your endeavor. And might even make, say, random people that don't even know you donate to the charity, specifically because your story is so touching and enticing and heartfelt, okay? So for my half marathon and full marathon, I used Just Giving. Very easy. Okay, so promoting the fundraising page, as you can imagine, you got to promote it through social media if you want, the most amount of reach. Obviously, it helps to have more followers. And make sure to copy the link and add it to the bio of your social media platforms. For example, your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, don't know, whatever it may be, okay? So fundraising pages should require an email to set up. And this is how you'll be notified when someone actually donates to your page. Ensure to thank them when you actually do receive a donation, of course, because it's very generous of people. So contacting the charity and race about a free t-shirt. This is just a small side tangent. I mean, you'll probably get sent this anyway. If you get in contact with a charity, they'll probably just send you off some merchandise to run the race in. But if you don't know anything about that, and if you want to just inquire about it, there's no harm in actually emailing the charity. You're probably going to be entitled to a free t-shirt to wear during the race to represent the charity. You do not have to wear it. Obviously, the raising the most money is paramount when you're dealing with charities, but it's a nice addition. The charity may automatically offer you a free t-shirt, as I said, but in some cases you may need to reach out and ask, and they'll be much obliged to send you off a free t-shirt. And I'm pretty sure you won't have to pay for it because, it's like free advertising basically, isn't it? So once you've entered and your place has been confirmed, you are ready to begin. Now we're going to move on to part one of the show, which is training. This is the part of the show where we will discuss the basic training protocols and how to ensure your body is properly adapted for the big day. We will discuss short, tempo, and hilly runs, how much time you should allocate for training, and how to taper before a big race to ensure you are in fighting shape for marathon day. We'll also discuss long runs, which are fundamental if you want to prepare yourself adequately for the big day. Long runs, trying to mimic your marathon day pace as well as the kind of marathon day atmosphere. The adrenaline that builds up, the nerves that build up before long runs in training will help you cope with the final big long run at the end of your training, that being the full marathon. Okay, I believe that when deciding to participate in an event like this, the goal should not just be completion, but to put in a good time, a time that's worth being proud of. Because you work for so long, you've been through arduous training. Obviously, it depends how much training you've actually done, but it's good to have a good time. It's something to be very proud of. Because sometimes, imagine if you put in all that effort and you didn't apply yourself on the day and you ended up getting a time that you just weren't proud of. You wouldn't have that same feeling, that same high. But of course, completing a marathon anyway, full stop, is an amazing achievement, obviously. So the number of people that I've actually spoken to in the last 4 months who have completed a marathon but were kind of disappointed when they were talking about it, they had some sort of like disappointed tone in their speech just because they didn't complete it in like a time that they were happy with. So to avoid this, train properly and train with vigor and perform on marathon day, obviously. So the fundamentals, marathon training consists of 4 main building blocks: base mileage, easy runs, speed/tempo runs, and long runs. Okay, so base mileage and running frequency. The base mileage should be built up over time, running 3 to 5 times per week, depending on your schedule. According to the Less is More marathon training plan by the University of Harvard, running 3 days a week is enough. Running 3 days a week decreases the overall time commitment of the program and the risk of injuries. They mentioned that you have 3 types of runs to do, once every week, basically. Simple. Personally, I would agree with this, especially if you have a busy schedule. Just ensure not to miss a run, okay? So if you do miss a run on the day, don't just wait till the next week to restart the 3 days a week. Just do it the next day, okay? Don't be missing out on a run, even if your schedule is, misshapen slightly. Okay, so how long should you train for before a marathon? A question that many people want to know. I certainly wanted to know when I was first signing up to do the marathon. Okay, so many runners typically allocate a training period between 16 to 20 weeks for a marathon preparation. During this phase, your heart muscles and mental endurance require gradual conditioning to meet the upcoming demands. Okay, it's crucial to follow a structured training regimen that progressively enhances your fitness and stamina. As we know, in the gym world, that is called progressive overload. And without training for progressive overload, you're not going to make any progress. That's basically how it is. Once you've got to a certain point of muscularity, obviously, of course, you make progress when you're an absolute beginner, but that's a different story for another day. Okay, simultaneously, this plan should incorporate adequate time for recuperation and repair with a recommended minimum of 3 days rest weekly. However, that's recommended. For a lot of people, especially young people, you won't need 3 days rest. Even if you're running 3 days a week, you can still go to the gym if you're an avid gym goer. You can do other things. You don't have to just solely, these 3 days are my rest days. No excuses. Going to rest on those days, okay? Don't just try and make excuses. You don't really need 3 solid full rest days, even on marathon prep. But it is important to recover and recuperate. So while the 16 to 20 week duration serves as the general guideline, some runners opt for a shorter, say 12-week program, while others extend their training over 24 weeks or even longer. Ultimately, the key is to design a training plan that aligns with your specific needs and goals. But of course, generally, depending on how hard you train, training for longer is always better. How many miles should you cover overall in training? Beginner to veteran. Let's just go over that quickly. So the ideal number of weekly miles for marathon training can vary significantly due to several influencing factors. Therefore, the range of overall marathon weekly mileage is considerably broader and open to more debate than the average peak distance for marathon long runs, the average peak distance being 20 miles in training. Okay, so if you're a beginner, they recommend doing no more than 20 to 22 miles in training. Okay, that's not really up for debate. However, the overall weekly mileage is and how many overall miles you should cover in your training block plus marathon day. Okay, so in the case of novices embarking on their first marathon journey, their marathon training often encompasses approximately 35 to 40 miles per week. In the height of training, you're going to build up to that eventually, of course. So for seasoned marathon runners, the veterans aiming to achieve a personal record, or those with extensive training experience, their weekly marathon training mileage may extend to 40 to 60 miles. Okay? Plus, competitive and sub-elite marathon runners maintain a average weekly mileage of well above 70 to 90 miles, which is pretty intense. That's pretty good going. That's like a full-time job. You're just running 9 to 5 days a week, Lastly, professional and elite runners frequently surpass the 100-mile mark in their marathon training regimens, often ranging from 110 to 140 miles per week, which is even more ballistic and even more crazy than the competitive and sub-elite marathon runners. 110 to 140 miles a week, you're doing nothing but running. You ain't sleeping. You ain't having some freaky time with the missus. She's over there getting all frustrated, and you're there doing like 140 miles a week, and you're like, sorry, priorities, love. That's crazy, yeah. I mean, I don't think I'll ever get to that point. You never know, though. There may be some event that I'll need to train for where I have to do 140 miles a week, but I'm not a professional or elite runner, and I don't really plan to be. It's more of a kind of passion project, all this running that I'm doing. However, I consider myself, as I said, to be a hybrid athlete, and I'm willing to push my body to its limits. Okay, so now we come to the easy run. So easy miles encompass all the remaining miles within your training regimen. Those that do not fall under the categories of tempo runs, intervals, or long run distance efforts. They can constitute a significant portion of your weekly mileage. Okay, so the distance of easy runs during the marathon training can vary widely based on your training plan, experience, and individual fitness level. Typically, easy runs may range from 3 to 8 miles, 5 to 13 kilometers, or more. The key is to focus on time rather than distance. Some of these runs, especially during longer sessions, for example, you might have an easy run scheduled for 45 minutes to an hour. It's important to listen to your body and adjust the distance and duration to ensure these runs remain comfortable and conducive to recovery, because ultimately they're a recovery run. So often I do an easy run after my long run. So my long run would be on Sundays, and then I conduct my easy run on, say, Tuesdays. You're sore from the long run, and it's just about, breaking in the muscles again, warming up a little bit for later on in the week where you're going to do your tempo runs and another long run, okay? Just getting the muscles warmed back up again, and just flushing out the remaining lactic acid. The length and frequency of easy runs will typically increase as you build your endurance and prepare for the race. Easy runs, as the name suggests, should be run slowly at what's known as a conversational pace. Okay, so what is a conversational pace? As the name suggests, a conversational pace is a running speed that you can hold a conversation at. Easy runs serve as recovery runs. Do not run them too fast, as you won't achieve the desired benefits. Okay, there's heart rate zones that you can worry about when it comes to easy runs. You got to make sure to run in zone 1, I believe, zone 2, but nothing above that. And if you run anything above that, you're not going to get the desired benefits. However, running zones will probably dive deeper into on a future episode. Okay, so the purpose of easy runs turns out that when running at leisurely pace, they play a pivotal role in fostering fundamental adaptations. So on these relaxed training days, your primary engagement is with your slow twitch muscle fibers. Okay, these fibers possess a higher concentration of mitochondria, elevated levels of aerobic enzymes, and greater capillary density compared to their fast twitch counterparts, which come into play during higher intensity, say speed workouts, for example. So I'm just going to break down what slow twitch muscle fibers are, as well as fast twitch muscle fibers, as well as mitochondria, capillary density, and ATP. Okay, so starting off with slow twitch muscle fibers. Slow twitch muscle fibers, or type 1 fibers, contract slowly, resist fatigue, and excel in endurance activities, and rely on oxygen for sustained energy production. Fast twitch muscle fibers, or type 2 fibers, contract quickly and generate high force. Okay, so you can imagine they'd be good for sprinting, but they fatigue rapidly, making them ideal for explosive, high-intensity activities that don't really require too much oxygen. Mitochondria. Mitochondria are tiny, energy-producing powerhouses within our cells that convert the food we eat and oxygen we breathe into a molecule called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. And adenosine triphosphate is basically our body's like energy currency, okay? Our cells use it as their primary source of energy for various functions in the body. So ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is a molecule that stores and provides energy for cellular activity in the body. So capillary density. So capillaries are tiny blood vessels that connect arteries and veins. Capillary density refers to the number of these small blood vessels in a specific area of tissue. Okay, it impacts the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to that tissue. Okay, according to Ben Berglund, the principal sports psychologist at Volt Sports Lab in Flagstaff, Arizona, in the United States. These easy days, he says, serve as a crucial building block. He says you increase mitochondria and capillaries and blood flow to those muscles, meaning they're better equipped to harness oxygen. Without this foundation, he quotes, the more intense runs wouldn't be possible. So get your easy runs in. And we're going to break down a little study now from the International Journey of Sports Physiology and Performance. So a 2013 study found that recreational runners who engaged in polarized training, a method of low-intensity workout, significantly improved their 10K times after 10 weeks. One group spent 77% of their time doing low-intensity workouts, 3% doing moderate-intensity workouts, a very small amount, and 20% doing high-intensity workouts, a method known as polarized training. Okay, so it focuses predominantly on low-intensity workouts, a very minute amount on moderate-intensity workouts, and a decent chunk on high-intensity workouts, but still a lot less than low-intensity workouts. Okay, so the other group spent 46% of their time doing low-intensity workouts, 35% doing moderate-intensity workouts, and 19% doing high-intensity workouts. Okay, so you've got one group doing polarized training, where they do 77% of their training at low intensity, 3% moderate intensity, and 20% at high intensity. Then you've got the second group that's doing 46% of their time at low intensity, 35% of their time moderate intensity, and 19% of their time at high intensity. All right, so two groups. The polarized training group saw nearly doubled improvement in time, shaving about 41 seconds off their total time. Okay, this finding was consistent with the 2014 study in the Frontiers in Physiology, which found that endurance athletes who followed a high volume training, threshold training, high intensity interval training, or polarized training protocols show the most improvements in VO2 max, time to exhaustion, and peak velocity and power. Okay, just to define it really quickly, polarized training is all about scaling down moderate intensity running to focus on purely the easy and hard running efforts. Polarized training can be defined as on a micro and macro scale, for example, just at the two ends of the spectrum. Hence the name polarized. Training is separated into low intensity and high intensity zones with, very little variation in the middle. Okay. Second, individual easy runs are very easy. So the low intensity workouts are really low intensity. They're really easy. They're not to be strenuous whatsoever, purely for recovery. However, the high intensity workouts are particularly difficult. They're very difficult. So very, very easy and very, very hard. Polarized training for you. Okay. Just a quick tangent, quick insight into polarized training. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Tempo runs. Okay. Tempo run is a faster paced, sustained effort during a marathon training where you run comfortably hard, but not at all out sprints. It helps improve your lactate threshold, enhancing your body's ability to run for longer and faster without fatigue. During marathon training, tempo runs typically range from 3 to 6 miles or 5 to 10 kilometers, or even longer, depending on your training plan and level of fitness. Tempo runs should be completed at least once per week, but these runs will require you to run faster and place more stress on your nervous system and muscles and bones. Okay, so you may need longer to recover. Lactate threshold. I mentioned that before. I'm going to define that quickly. The lactate threshold is the exercise intensity at which lactic acid accumulates in your muscles faster than your body can clear it away, causing muscle fatigue. It's a key factor in endurance and performance. Okay. Tempo runs also help to increase your cardio capacity and anaerobic capacity. So cardio capacity, or cardiovascular capacity, refers to the ability of your heart and lungs to deliver oxygen to your muscles during physical activity. It reflects your overall endurance and fitness level. Anaerobic capacity. Anaerobic capacity is your body's ability to produce energy for high-intensity, short-duration activities without relying on oxygen. Anaerobic, without oxygen. So, the long runs, Next up, the long runs should be done every 7 to 10 days, extending a run by a mile or two each week. Scaling back by a few miles every 3 weeks is essential for recovery purposes. Okay, you don't want to be overtaxing your body and overtraining. That is the last thing you want to be doing, especially during marathon prep. It can be quite easy to overtrain. For example, I've done it numerous times because I also do resistance training as well. I also go to the gym on top of all my marathon training. So, not giving myself enough exercise or staying up too late one night, I was definitely feeling it the next morning. Okay, so most marathon training plans, the long run, as previously mentioned, peaks at 20 miles, okay? It's not recommended you do more than 20 miles before the actual event, because on race day, you'll pull the other 6 miles out of the bag, which I found to be the case, because the longest I did in training from the Yorkshire Marathon was 20 miles. But 26 miles seemed like not like a breeze, but it was just a bit easier than I expected it to be, okay? Long runs help to build endurance and mental resilience for the marathon distance. They're necessary to prepare your body and mind for the day ahead. If you like, long runs help you build up aerobic capacity. Okay, so we discussed anaerobic capacity without oxygen. Aerobic capacity is your body's ability to use oxygen to produce energy for sustained endurance activities. Anaerobic without oxygen, aerobic with oxygen. So I suppose it's like air with air. I don't know. That's how I always thought about it back in school, back in PE. The 20 miler should probably come at about 6 to 8 weeks out. So between 16 and 22 miles, 20 miles, generally the recommended distance to cover. Okay, depending on your training plan, of course. So typical pace. Long runs are done at a slower pace, generally 1 to 2 minutes slower than your marathon pace. Okay, and only you will know your marathon pace. Tapering before race day. So in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the marathon, scaling back significantly on overall mileage and difficulty of runs to allow the body to rest up is very important. Okay, so I'm quickly going to break down a tapering study by the Frontiers in Sports and Active Living that was published in 2021. So this study aims to analyze the taper strategies of recreational runners to determine whether specific forms of taper were more or less favorable to race day performance. Okay, so the researchers analyzed the training activities of 158,000 recreational marathon runners and identified different types of taper based on duration and discipline. Results showed that strict tapers were associated with better marathon performance than relaxed tapers, and longer tapers of up to 3 weeks were associated with better performance than shorter tapers. Strict 3-week tapers were associated with superior marathon finishing time benefits, with a median finishing time saving of 5 minutes 32.4 seconds, or 2.6% compared to a minimal taper. Okay. Female runners were associated with greater finishing time benefits than men for a given taper type, for some reason. The study also highlights that most recreational runners, 64%, adopt less discipline 2-week and 3-week tapers, suggesting that shifting to a more disciplined taper strategy could improve performance relative to the benefits of a less disciplined taper. Weight training alongside running can be good for a number of factors, so I'm going to detail them now. All right, so first of all, injury prevention. Strength training can help prevent common running-related injuries by improving strength and stability of your muscles and your joints, as well as increasing your bone density. Studies have shown that resistance training can reduce the risk of overuse injuries caused by running, for example. Okay, so improved running economy. Building strength through weight training can enhance your running economy, allowing you to run more efficiently. This is essential for marathon runners to maintain pace over a long distance and a long period of time. Okay, so running economy, just to define that, it refers to how efficiently your body uses oxygen while running, improving your body's ability to maintain a steady pace and cover long distances with less effort. Increased muscle power. Strength training can boost muscular performance, which is valuable for hill running, for example. You got to have strong legs to be able to run up hills quickly with good pace, and it's also good for sprint finishes during races. For example, in my marathon attempts, the last 500 meters, I believe, I sprinted towards the finish line. And it was great, absolutely amazing feeling. Like you're almost there, 500 meter sprint, just your legs feel like absolute jelly. They're like numb, but it's great. You're still going for it. It can also help counteract the muscle fatigue that can occur during the late stages of a race. For example, having strong thighs, strong hamstrings, strong calves, etc. So during my training, focusing on leg training kind of during the middle block of training, not so much towards the end because I didn't want to just over fatigue the muscle, but in the sort of center, training legs was kind of essential for me because I just felt like it definitely did improve my leg strength and overall muscular endurance, which greatly benefited my overall running ability. Okay, so weight training alongside running can also lead to enhanced endurance performance. Okay, so a 2010 study available from the International Journal of Sports Medicine titled Strength Training in Endurance Runners concluded that maximal or explosive strength training performed concurrently at the same time as endurance training was more effective in improving strength and neuromuscular performance and in enhancing your VO2 max and running economy in recreational endurance runners than concurrent circuit and endurance training. Okay, so a quick breakdown. I'm just going to define VO2 max quickly. So VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during intense exercise and is a measure of aerobic fitness. Okay. A quick fun fact about VO2 max. According to a recent study in the journal Mayo Clinic, your cardiorespiratory fitness is a major indicator of how long you'll actually live for. Okay, it can basically determine your longevity, and the better your VO2 max is, the longer you'll probably live. And just to add a bit of contradiction in there to contradict myself, I suppose, with different science. This is another 2010 study by the Journal of Strength and Conditioning titled The Effects of Concurrent Strength and Endurance Training on Running Performance and Running Economy in Recreational Marathon Runners. Okay. This study found there to be no benefits of an 8-week concurrent strength training for running economy and the coordination of recreational marathon runners despite a significant increase in leg strength. However, they determined that this study, the results of this study may be because of an insufficient sample size or the short intervention period. Okay, so don't take that study as gospel, but it's good to provide, an insight into both sides of the story. For example, a 2016 study by the Human Performance Research Group Center for Health and Sports Sciences in Brazil, available on Springer Link, found that explosive training and heavyweight training are effective concurrent training methods aiming to improve running economy within a few weeks. Okay. However, long-term training programs seem to be necessary when the largest possible improvement is required. Okay. So what's the verdict? Overall, my research has led me to believe that weight training alongside endurance training can lead to an overall improvement in running economy and therefore your overall endurance. So I would definitely recommend strength training and endurance training. So being a hybrid athlete, combining the two domains is not going to reduce your performance. In fact, it's going to increase your performance. Okay, it's going to benefit you, especially lower body training as well. But of course, it's good to, get an upper body training session in, all the running and all the weight training and all the protein intake. If you properly nail your diet, you're going to look sick. You're going to look, aesthetic. You're going to probably lose weight. You're going to have adequate muscle mass as well as have the cardio to be able to transport that muscle mass around on a regular basis. So it's important to factor in, however, recovery when combining the two domains, because obviously, training for a marathon is one thing, but combining marathon training with resistance training is also going to require you to recover a lot more. So it's important to factor in recovery when combining the two domains. If you're training for a marathon, say 3 times a week, weight training a few times a week on top of that will increase the amount of recovery that your body needs. Weight training in the taper phase, the last few weeks before your marathon, is generally not recommended, as this taper phase is designed to allow you to get the most amount of recovery possible. A strenuous weight training session, like in the weeks or days before your big endurance event, that being a marathon, is probably not best practice because it may inhibit your performance, could lead to injury, could compromise your back. For example, if you're doing like squats or deadlifts, stuff like that, I would definitely avoid deadlifts throughout the whole of your marathon training because I always felt they would compromise my back. However, I'm not an avid deadlifter, but if your back is used to it and you have correct form, it's perfectly okay. I would recommend that if you're used to it, of course, but generally, I wouldn't recommend it. Bone health is the next one we're going to discuss. Okay, so weight-bearing strength training can also contribute to better bone density and reduce risk of stress fractures, which can be a concern for long-distance runners. Focusing on specific muscle groups with your resistance training. So when incorporating weight training into your marathon training plan, it's important to focus on exercises that are quite specific and will benefit your running. Okay, so you're doing exercises in the gym that's going to translate to improved performance when you're out on the road or out on the track doing your running. All right, so best to train stuff like your lower body, as previously mentioned, like squats, lunges, and some core exercises. Okay, for stability, ensure that the strength training complements your running schedule, allowing for adequate recovery between sessions. Obviously, I mentioned that's extremely important. Remember also a well-rounded training program includes not only endurance training, but also strength training, flexibility work, and proper nutrition to support your overall marathon goals. Okay, so that moves us quickly and nicely onto the next part, which is diets, nutrition, and hydration protocols one should employ during marathon training for optimal performance. Ensuring you fuel your body correctly during marathon prep is essential. All your hard work during training will be put to waste if you do not fuel correctly. Okay, constructing the correct nutrition and hydration protocol will ensure you can train and recover at your maximum potential. Okay, it's important to conduct research into what to eat, how much to eat, and when to eat before starting your marathon training. Obviously, I would highly recommend you do your own research as well as listening to videos like this. If this is your research and you're taking pointers from me, I'd be happy to, entrust my information with you. First, we're going to discuss leveraging macronutrients. So the body can derive energy from all three macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, although it has a preference for carbohydrates and fats. Consequently, individuals engaged in vigorous physical activities, such as athletes, often require higher quantities of carbohydrates and fats compared to those with a less active lifestyle, as you can imagine. So, carbohydrates. When structuring your diet plan for marathon training, the primary focus should be on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates serve as the primary fuel source for your body as you strive to cross the marathon finish line in a good time. According to the ISSN, the International Society of Sports Nutrition, individuals following demanding training regimens should aim for a daily carbohydrate intake of 5 to 8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, but of course, that's just a rough guideline. You should be able to work in symbiosis with your own body and figure out what works for you, okay, through practice. And maybe monitoring and tracking your diet and, seeing what amount of carbs your body operates best on. However, those are the general guidelines, of course. I'll later on in the show, I'll relay my own nutrition protocols. But I'll give you, little pointers here and there as we progress through the diet and hydration part of the show. Okay, so protein is the next macronutrient we're going to discuss. So protein is another essential macronutrient for marathon runners, with an ISSN recommendation of 1.4 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Protein plays a vital role in recovery, injury prevention, and the maintenance of lean muscle, as we know. It's advisable to distribute protein intake throughout the day with a particular focus on post-run consumption, okay? But there's no sort of like anabolic window, which is, quite a, I suppose, polarizing term in the bodybuilding industry because, you do your workout, people think you got to slam a protein shake like within 30 minutes of the workout. That is not true. Net protein intake throughout the day is, of course, paramount. But, within a couple hours of your big run or big workout, it's important to get in protein, especially if you haven't intaken much protein before the actual run, which you probably haven't because the priority was carbohydrates. The pre-run snack was probably just going to be carbohydrates, but depends. Okay, so the next macronutrient is fat. Incorporating fats into a marathon runner's diet is equally as important as the rest. The ISSN suggests maintaining a fat intake approximately 30% of the total daily calorie consumption, though this can be adjusted upward to meet energy requirements as necessary. Okay, so what foods should you eat? It's advisable to select nutrient-dense foods throughout your training regimen. Obviously, although junk food might seem tempting for meeting calorie goals, it's not conducive to peak performance. Okay, so an ideal marathon training diet should maintain a well-rounded composition encompassing ample portions of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats. Okay, examples of lean protein: 5% fat mince, you got fillet steak, some sirloin steak, chicken, turkey mince, or just turkey in general. Healthy fats, you got your eggs, you got your avocados, you've got your animal fats, just a couple of examples. It's important to make sure that you're eating more calories while training, obviously, because you're burning a lot of training and your body needs those calories to recover adequately. But eating more of the wrong foods can actually slow you down. So when your fuel is cleaner, less processed, and overall healthier, you'll find improvements in your performance. Okay, it's like, imagine, this is the car analogy. Imagine a car, sports car. You're the sports car. You're the athlete that's training for a marathon. If you give that car, shoddy quality fuel, your basic unleaded, it's probably not going to perform at its best. But if you give it that super unleaded, that premium unleaded, it's going to use that a lot more efficiently and effectively because it's high quality fuel. It's going to perform at its peak like it's supposed to. So that's how your body should work. Consider yourself a sports car and fuel it correctly. So when training for a marathon and, when living life in general, I suppose you should avoid sugary drinks, spicy foods, deep fried foods, and highly over-processed foods. Okay, so there's a difference between processed and ultra processed foods. All right, it's best to know the difference. Ultra processed foods being those with 30 ingredients on the package, like Rustler's burgers, for example, probably not best. But you get processed foods like some protein yogurts and all that sort of stuff. But generally, not considered junk food, but still technically processed foods, but not ultra processed. Okay, so they're not as bad for you. These foods are not going to be very easy on your stomach, especially spicy foods. So best not to eat that before a big run the next day. And they take more time to digest. Okay, because a lot of fried foods, for example, they're very oily, lots of fats. They're going to be, slow digesting, and your body's got to break down all the ultra processed foods if you do eat that as well, because it's not like whole foods. It's not like kind of, what is this? It's not particularly used to it. Okay, so cheat days and staying sustainable. Okay, small section. Having a cheat day once in a while most likely does not harm your performance or undo all the hard work you have done. Once a month may be a good recommendation if you like, but if you must have a cheat day. But once a week is probably not advisable because it's going to disrupt your routine, and it's hard to kind of maintain a diet and see the kind of benefits that you want from the diet if you're having a really gluttonous cheat day once a week. For example, overindulging on a cheat day the day before a long run of the week, it's not going to be conducive to peak performance. For example, if your diet is sustainable, meaning you're going to find healthy options and healthy alternatives to unhealthy foods. For example, you're ensuring you eat adequate calories and don't starve yourself, and conduct research into tasty but also healthy foods. You should not need a cheat day, okay? For example, I eat dark chocolate, peanut butter, full-fat Greek yogurt, and granola every day. I've had that every day for the past 5-6 months when I've been doing my training. I monitor my portion sizes, obviously, and I don't overindulge. And I eat these foods every day because I enjoy them. They're really nice, and they help me sustain my diet. It's peanut butter, it's dark chocolate, okay? I just don't overconsume them. I have them in my protein oats in the morning, and I have them in my granola bowl with my Greek yogurt and granola in the evening. like twice a day for months, but I monitor my calorie intake and my portion sizes to make sure I'm not over consuming. Okay. But then again, I am training for a marathon. So generally my calorie intake is going to be higher than most people's. Okay. So it's important to know how many calories you're burning and how many calories you can therefore intake. Quick side tangent, but I think it's worth knowing. The granola issue, okay? So be mindful that some foods are higher in calories than you actually think. For example, I mentioned granola. Granola can be dangerous. In the UK, on the back of most cereal boxes and granola packets, they state one serving is around 30 to 40 grams. The same applies to the granola that I eat. When you actually weigh out 30 to 40 grams, it's a pathetic amount of granola. Because of this, people, they're like misled, as 30 to 40 grams of granola contains a relatively low amount of calories. So they just pour themselves up a bowl, what they consider to be like a decent size without weighing it out. And like, oh yeah, that's probably a serving. That's probably a serving. But 30 to 40 grams, that's like 170 calories. But that's because it's just a pathetic amount of granola. Okay. But when you actually weigh out what most people will consider to be a decent serving of granola, say, I don't know, 150 to 200 grams. 150 is still not much at all, really, for me personally. So 200 grams plus is probably a decent size for most people. Okay. So 200 grams of that granola that I eat is 852 calories, which, it's just a completely different ballpark. Okay. It's a big difference. So be mindful when it comes to cereals in general. Side tangent over. Granola rant over. Just thought it was worth mentioning. When you come to track your calories, you'll learn that a lot of foods are a lot higher in calories than you thought. For example, I had a pasta sauce last night. It was like an arrabbiata one. Can't remember which brand it was, but it was, you just think it's going to be like tomatoes and you think it's going to be very, very low calories. So you just empty the whole jar in. But this kind of like 700 gram jar of pasta sauce, which you think is just tomatoes, was like 700, 800 calories. Like it was crazy just because they have a lot of oil in these jars, these like pre-made pasta sauce jars. So, keep your wits about you. Be careful, because you never know, that pasta sauce or that healthy granola just might come back to bite you. So creating a sustainable marathon prep diet. Okay. So how much should you eat? Marathon runners devote extensive hours to continuous demanding physical activity. Regrettably, many runners tend to neglect the importance of their dietary choices. The adoption of a wholesome marathon training diet is pivotal for optimizing performance and streamlining the training process. Okay, the initial step involves ensuring the intake of calories is sufficient to support heightened physical demands. Failing to match increased activity with proper nourishment can result in muscle loss, heightened susceptibility to illness, heightened stress, and disrupted sleep patterns, for example. So it's extremely important that you reach your calorie requirements. Okay, so calorie recommendations for individuals during marathon prep and those individuals that are also just training, at higher intensities a lot more often. Okay, so for individuals engaged in moderate to intense training, such as daily sessions lasting 2 to 3 hours or 5 to 6 days each week, the International Society of Sport Nutrition, ISSN, indicates a potential daily calorie requirement spanning from 2,000 to 7,000 calories based on an athlete's weight within the 50 to 100 kilo range, that being 110 to 220 pound range. Yes, that is the recommendation of the ISSN, but once again, a range from 2,000 to 7,000 isn't particularly useful to find out how many calories you should eat, obviously. So even for men and women on the lighter end of the spectrum, weighing around 50 to 60 kilos or 110 to 132 pounds, eating around 2,000 calories, with all that exercise that you're doing is probably not, best. It's most likely going to be too little. Okay, so personally, I would advise eating more than that, especially if you're training 5 to 6 days a week. Okay, so do what works for you, but don't overindulge. Ensure that you're not overindulging just because you're training for a marathon. Very important to know. You don't want to put on any excess unnecessary weight because you are going to have to carry around that weight when it comes to race day, and it's probably going to inhibit your performance. Okay, it's like wearing a weighted vest. Say over marathon training, you put on like 10 10 kilos. It's just like, you build up to the day, and then on the day, you basically carry around a 10 kilo like weighted vest on top of, running 26 miles. Just be careful and monitor your calorie consumption. You don't have to be completely anal retentive about it, but it is important. Nutrition is extremely important. Cannot stress this enough. You want to perform like an athlete, and you got to eat like an athlete, okay? Except that that's your life from now on. And if you're really going to take this marathon training seriously, then that's what you're going to have to do, okay? It's as simple as that. So here's a rough way to calculate your nutritional intake based on how long you are training for each day. This method is provided by Polar Electro. Polar Electro is a Finnish manufacturer of sports training computers, particularly known for developing the world's first wireless heart rate monitor that goes around the chest, for example. Okay, so they recommend that 60 to 90 minutes of running requires 19 to 21 calories per pound of body weight. 90 minutes to 2 hours of running requires 22 to 24 calories per pound of body weight. And 2 to 3 hours of running requires at least 25 to 30 calories per pound of body weight. Okay, so for example, a runner who weighs 132 pounds, 60 kilos, and is doing a 90-minute run should ensure that they consume at least 2,904 calories to fuel the session properly. Okay, so that's a good calculator, all right? It's not for everyone. Of course, people's metabolisms will be different. So it's important just to nail your own routine, to track your own, work out your own maintenance calories, work out how many calories you're burning, and then conduct and build your kind of diet protocols on top of that. Ensure to fuel properly on rest days, also extremely important. So because it's a rest day, the goal is to recover. You need adequate nutrition to help with that recovery. So fueling on rest days is essential because it supports recovery, muscle repair, and overall well-being. Adequate nutrition on rest days replenishes energy stores, helps prevent muscle loss, and ensures the body is prepared for the upcoming training sessions. Okay, it also aids in maintaining a balanced metabolism and supports immune function, promoting a sustainable and effective training routine. It's advisable to eat a similar amount of food to what you would normally do on running days, for example. However, it's best not to eat like you've completed, your long run of the week on your rest day. For example, by that I mean after your long run, you probably burnt the most amount of calories you'll burn that week. So generally you need to eat a bit more calories, okay? And your overall calorie intake for the day will be quite high. However, your expenditure is also high. On rest days, your expenditure is low because you're resting, you're doing nothing. So you don't really need the same amount of calories that you would need on a long run day, okay? But that's just common knowledge. If you're not doing any activity, you don't need the excess calories to fuel your, minimal amount of performance. It's just common knowledge, but it's important to know fuel adequately on rest days. But again, don't overindulge. When I say, eat your normal running diet, I don't mean your post long run meal. Just, don't be doing that on rest days. Okay. Eat enough, but don't overconsume. You're recovering, but you're not expending. Okay. So if you want to monitor your calorie intake, so to actually work out how many calories you're eating and how many calories you potentially should eat during marathon prep, you can use tracking apps to track your calories and macronutrients. The easiest way to track your calorie intake is with popular food journals, for example, MyFitnessPal. The app's nutrition database is extensive and with over 5 million different types of food. It also has barcode scanners for packaged food, and it saves your favorite meals for convenient sort of logging. So you can just log a meal as a whole. So you eat the same thing every day. You just go on there, you click, say, breakfast, and it has the breakfast that you consume every single day. So you don't need to individually go and weigh out your food and take time doing that. Okay. Other calorie tracker apps include NutriCheck, which is paid, My Macros, Nutrition, X Track, Lose It, ! And more specialized paid apps like Carbon, for example, which offers sophisticated monitoring and science-savvy recommendations. Losing weight before a race. Will it give you an advantage? So losing weight before a marathon should be approached with caution. It's important to distinguish between healthy weight loss and excessive weight loss, okay? As they can have different effects on marathon performance. Healthy weight loss can, if you have like excess body fat to actually lose, if you're quite a chunky lad or lass before a race and you would benefit from losing a bit of weight, it can improve your running, losing fat, by reducing the energy cost of carrying that excess weight. However, this should be done gradually, and to ensure you maintain your energy levels and you don't, mess around with your hormones. Okay. And your muscle mass as well. So if you cut too quickly and you lose weight too quickly, it's going to be hard to hold on to all that muscle mass. Okay. So if you have excess weight to lose, it would be worth losing it before you actually start your marathon preparations. For example, say you want 6 months to lose weight, 6 months to run a marathon. Ideally, don't combine the two. So you do your 6 months training and your 6 months of losing weight in that 1 6 month block. It's best to spread it out into a whole year. Okay. So the first 6 months you dedicate to actually losing the weight, and then you're in prime condition to actually begin your marathon training. And then you spend 6 months training for a marathon and you'll probably achieve a better performance. Personally, I can imagine it would be more conducive to improve performance. Excess or rapid weight loss can have a detrimental effect on your marathon performance and overall health. As I've already explained, it can lead to muscle loss, fatigue, decreased endurance, and a higher risk of injury. It may also hinder your ability to fuel your body properly during your training and the race. It's important to focus on overall health, obviously, proper nutrition, and a well-balanced training regimen when preparing for a marathon. The emphasis should always be on achieving your best performance and not just losing weight. Okay, now we're going to discuss carb loading before race day. Many runners opt for a pre-race dinner featuring pasta to stock up on carbohydrates. If that suits your routine, then go for it. It's a valid choice, okay? The key is to maintain a sense of balance and moderation. A good suggestion would be to aim for meals that are rich in carbohydrates, obviously moderate in protein. I'd say high in protein, but this is the general recommendation, and low in fat, because obviously fat takes quite a long time to digest. Fiber and spice as well should probably be avoided, considering if you're eating a meal that's very high in fiber and quite spicy, the next day you're probably going to feel that in your bowel movements, let's say. Ensure that your pre-race meal aligns with what you've consumed before during your previous runs and general marathon training. For some runners, that may involve pasta, while others may prefer rice, bread, or grains, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, whatever it may be, cereal right before they go to bed. It's just whatever suits your current practices. You shouldn't really switch it up too much when you're carb loading in the day or days before a marathon event. Don't switch it up too much, especially to foods your body's not actually used to ingesting and taking in. Stick to what you know and stick to what you know is going to benefit your performance, let's just say. Okay. It's a common misconception that a pre-race dinner is the sole opportunity to load up on carbohydrates. However, it's important not to disregard the meals in the days leading up to the marathon. Okay. So, for example, mine was on a Sunday, so I made sure to basically carb load the entire week, or increase my carbs throughout the week. Towards the end of the week, and say Friday and Saturday, I properly carb loaded on both those days, but didn't overconsume, obviously. It's incredibly vital. What I'd also recommend, and what the general recommendation is to have a good pre-race lunch, a lunch that's heavy in carbohydrates, not necessarily a big dinner, because obviously if you have dinner and then you sleep, you get an early night because you probably have a race in the morning. You don't want to be sleeping on all those carbohydrates and, have a stomach full of food, and you don't want to be laying flat and letting it digest like that. What I find best is just having like a big pre-race lunch. So feast at lunchtime, so you have more time to actually digest the food in your stomach before you eventually sleep, and the carbohydrates have more time to get turned into glucose and stored as glycogen within the muscles. A solid recommendation is that runners prioritize their pre-race lunch, as it allows for better digestion. Dinner remains significant, but if you've had a proper lunch, you do not need to overly rely on dinner. Okay, so in terms of portion control, the term carb loading shouldn't be misinterpreted as overindulgence. Simply aim to feel comfortably satisfied. For example, eating a large Domino's pizza and a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream before a big run the next day or before race day is not going to be the best idea, okay? So going to sleep on a full stomach may inhibit your body's ability to get high quality sleep. So nutrition on race day in the morning, make sure you have easy on the stomach carbohydrates at least an hour before the race. This is just the general recommendation of the online community. You can have a smoothie, a banana with peanut butter, toast, jam, bagel, granola bars, a bowl of fruits. But yeah, just stick to whatever works for you, whatever's high in fast digesting carbohydrates and what you like, obviously, do not introduce new or unfamiliar foods into your diet on race day, as you don't want to take the chance of having to deal with unexpected stomach issues as you run your marathon. Personally, although I will explain this later on, I think an excellent pre-run snack full of fast digesting carbohydrates would be something like a piece of sourdough toast with peanut butter and a banana. Okay, that generally works for me. But also I take a carb and electrolyte powder as well, which obviously, as the name suggests, has a decent amount of carbohydrates and electrolytes within it as well to support your training endeavors. All right, nutrition during the marathon. This is equally, if not more important than the nutrition before the run. Okay, so you might be inclined to forego snacks during the marathon and power through your run. However, data from the Research Center at Run Repeats, which analyzed 107.9 million race results from over 70,000 events in 209 countries between 1986 and 2018, reveals that the average marathon finishing time is 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 49 seconds. And whether your finish time falls below or above that mark, running continuously for hours demands proper nutrition during that time. Okay? So intra-race food. It's essential to fuel your body with food during the marathon and aim to consume 30 to 60 grams of easily digestible carbohydrates per hour. These carbohydrates can be sourced from sports drinks, energy bars, gels, chews, and fruits like bananas, for example. You do not need to come to a halt to eat. Simply take small bites as you continue your run, which I did on my marathon. So I had gels and I had Sorine malt loaf lift bars. I think that's what they're called. If those in the UK will know what a Sorine malt loaf is, probably not a favorite of most people, but it's a bit of a staple in the British foods, I suppose. But yeah, I had a slightly different version this time. They're called Sorine lift bars, and they were blueberry flavored. They're really good. Saw them in the supermarket. I was aiming to get the malt loaf snack size bars, but I saw them, and I was like, oh yeah, those look pretty good. 27 grams of carbohydrates, only 8 grams of sugar, but it's still like wheat. It's like fast digesting carbohydrates. So I had my gels and I had those as well, and I was just snacking on them during the run, making sure not to take like huge bites, because of course you don't want to just stop to chew. You don't want to have a huge mouth, and that means you can't breathe. So you have to stop. Yeah, it's just not going to work. So just slowly snack on them as you run along. Gels you can eat very quickly. That's what they're designed. They're designed for ease of use when running. Okay, so a helpful guideline is to take in a carbohydrate-rich snack every 20 to 30 minutes, following it with 3 sips of water or hydration drink. If you're using a sports drink containing carbs, you'll receive both fuel and hydration in one. If you opt for a gel, be sure to follow it with water. Of course, drinking water before and during the marathon is essential. Moving on, intra-race hydration. Determining your precise hydration needs for a marathon can be a bit complex. It requires careful consideration of your unique characteristics as a runner and the conditions you'll encounter on race day. Some factors to ponder include your body weight, your level of perspiration, that being how much you sweat, your estimated race duration, and the expected race day conditions. The weather, for example, because you'll probably perspire more if it's warmer and less if it's colder, obviously. By considering these factors, you can arrive at a more accurate estimate of your minimum water requirements leading up to the marathon without the risk of overhydration. A useful practice is to aim for approximately 400 milliliters to 500 milliliters of water about 2 hours before the race commences, followed by an additional 200 mils 15 minutes prior to the start. Water requirements are subject to variation based on individual factors such as sweat rate and external elements like heat, humidity, exercise intensity, for example. As a general guideline, a consumption of 400 mils to 800 mils of water per hour is often adequate during a race. Hydration and electrolytes. Electrolytes are essential minerals that have an electric charge and play a crucial role in various physiological functions, particularly during marathon preparation and races. The main electrolytes include sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, and bicarbonates. So sodium, let's just break them all down for you there. Sodium is essential for fluid balance and nerve function. It helps regulate blood pressure and aids in muscle contractions. Potassium is crucial for muscle and nerve function, heart health, and maintaining proper fluid balance in cells. Calcium is vital for muscle contractions, bone health, and blood clotting. Magnesium supports muscle and nerve function. Again, it regulates blood pressure again and is involved in energy production. Chloride helps maintain fluid balance and supports proper digestion as a component of stomach acid. Bicarbonate helps regulate blood pH and acid-base balance. So those are the main electrolytes. To ensure you get enough electrolytes during your marathon preparation and races, it's important to have a balanced diet, okay? So consuming a balanced diet with foods rich in electrolytes is very important. For example, bananas and oranges are good sources of potassium, while dairy products provide calcium. Salting your meals tends to be demonized, okay? So eating too much salt can cause high blood pressure, which increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes. However, on days when you've been running or working out for a long period of time and you've been sweating quite a lot, salting your meals will benefit your recovery and your ability to kind of recover your electrolyte balance and maintain a good electrolyte balance and to reduce fatigue and drop in your performance during a race. It's important to intake enough sodium, for example. So another way you could ensure you get enough electrolytes during your training is to consume an electrolyte supplement. Consider using electrolyte supplements or sports drinks that provide a mix of sodium, potassium, and other electrolytes. These can help maintain a good balance during your sessions. Personally, I use an electrolyte powder by SIS. It's called Go Electrolyte, and it provides, I think it's like a 40 gram serving, which is 2 scoops, and it contains 36 grams of carbohydrates and 500 milligrams of sodium, as well as 0 sugar. There are plenty of electrolyte supplements on the market, but when purchasing, just ensure that they have adequate amounts of electrolytes. Make sure to prioritize sodium, okay? So around 300 to 700 milligrams of sodium is ideal, is optimal. Other electrolyte supplements with quality formulas include GYM Sport by Bare Performance Nutrition, providing 20 grams of carbohydrates and 350 milligrams of sodium per 24 gram serving, as well as Gatorlyte, which is a popular bottled electrolyte drink by Gatorade. It's popular in America. So per 590 ml bottle, it contains 490 milligrams of sodium. And it does contain a bit of sugar, but I believe it's lighter on the sugar. That becomes glucose, and your body uses that as a source of fast-releasing carbohydrates. It's important to have a hydration strategy as well. Okay, so developing a hydration strategy that includes both water and electrolyte-rich fluids. The balance depends on your sweat rate and individual needs, but just to be knowledgeable of when you should take electrolyte drinks is always important. And it's also important to know, when you don't need it. You don't want to over-hydrate yourself or just hydrate yourself unnecessarily for no reason and say waste money on certain electrolyte drinks that you think you need. For example, Prime hydration. At no point ever should you probably need one of them unless you're looking for like a drink that tastes nice and you're tired of drinking water and any other beverage. You have that, but it's not the formula isn't amazing. It's just very high in potassium with little to no sodium whatsoever. So it's going to really do nothing for you. Okay, so marathon race nutrition. So during the race, use sports gels, chews, or drinks that have a good amount of electrolytes within them to maintain balance and energy levels and ensure you don't cramp up during your run. Be sure to follow the recommended dosages. Balancing your electrolyte intake during marathon preparations is essential for preventing imbalances, enhancing performance, and staying safe in various race conditions. Okay, consult with a sports nutritionist to tailor your electrolyte strategy to your specific needs if you must. I mean, if you have the funds to do so, I would highly recommend it rather than just developing your strategy by yourself online. You're always going to get better results if you go down the more professional route with help from an external source like a nutritionist or dietitian or personal trainer, for example, that can recommend you a good formula and a good electrolyte strategy. However, it's up to you whether you want to spend that money. Okay. Medical conditions as a result of electrolyte imbalance. During marathon preparation, especially in hot or prolonged races, you need electrolytes to maintain proper hydration and prevent electrolyte imbalances. Okay. Imbalances in these minerals can lead to various conditions. For example, hyponatremia. This occurs when there is too much sodium in the blood, often due to dehydration. Symptoms can include extreme thirst, confusion, and in severe cases, seizures or comas. Hyponatremia. So you have hypernatremia, natremia, and hyponatremia. This is a result of low sodium levels in the blood, typically due to excessive fluid intake without sufficient electrolyte replacement. It can lead to symptoms like nausea, headache, confusion, and in severe cases, again, seizures and comas. And then you have hypokalemia, which is a condition characterized by low potassium levels in the blood, which can lead to muscle weakness, cramps, and heart irregularities, for example. So you want none of those conditions. So it's always important to maintain electrolyte balance, adequate electrolyte balance in the blood. Okay, so that moves us on nicely to part 3, which is recovery. Okay, so now we're moving on to part 3, which is about recovery. So proper recovery during marathon training is vital to minimize risk of injury, enhance performance, and ensure that your body is well prepared for the next training session. Okay, here's a detailed guide on how to recover effectively. Nutrition, always important. Soon after your run, it's important to consume a recovery snack or a meal rich in carbohydrates and protein to replenish those expended during the exercise. This aids in replenishing glycogen storage in the muscles and initiating muscle repair via protein synthesis. Okay, you have to hydrate well, obviously rehydrate with water or an electrolyte drink to replace the electrolytes lost in sweat during training. Within a couple hours post-run, have a balanced meal that includes lean proteins, complex carbohydrates, and healthy fats. This promotes muscle recovery and overall replenishment. Net protein intake throughout the day should ultimately be paramount. You don't necessarily need to worry about downing a protein shake immediately after your workout. As I've already mentioned, it's a bit unnecessary. Net protein intake throughout the whole day is more important, of course. However, if you run fasted or you've eaten a very little protein in your pre-run meal, it will be important to get in that post-run protein. Eating multiple high protein meals throughout the day is a good recommendation to keep protein synthesis high throughout the whole day. Consuming protein before bed is considered good practice. It can be beneficial for muscle repair and growth, controlling hunger, stabilizing blood sugar, and improving metabolism. Okay, so consuming protein before bed can help keep protein synthesis high throughout the night. Because when you sleep, you're obviously fasting. You're not eating anything. Okay, so it's probably the longest window throughout the whole 24-hour period where you're actually fasting. So it's important that if you eat a lot of protein before you go to bed, not right before you go to bed, but just make sure that dinner a couple hours before you go to bed is very high in protein so that overnight your body can, maintain good levels of protein synthesis and you're recovering adequately throughout the night, supplying your muscles with protein while you sleep, basically. And just to define protein synthesis, It's the cellular process where your body creates new proteins. Proteins are made up of smaller units called amino acids. Okay, so amino acids are linked together in a specific order to form functional proteins. Okay, so this process is essential for various biological functions, including muscle growth, repair, and the production of enzymes and hormones. So amino acids are extremely important. Having all of them will be conducive to adequate muscle repair. So amino acids, just to define them, they're the building blocks of protein, and there are 20 different types of amino acids. They can be categorized into 3 groups based on their functions. Okay, so you have essential amino acids, you have non-essential amino acids, and then you have conditional amino acids. Okay, so essential amino acids, also known as EAAs, are called essential because when the body cannot produce them on its own, it must obtain them through the diet. Okay, so the body can't produce these amino acids by itself, so it has to obtain it via the food that you intake. Okay, so these amino acids are essential for various biological processes, and a lack of them in your diet can lead to health issues. Therefore, it is essential to include them in your diet to ensure proper growth, maintenance, and overall well-being. Okay, so there are 9 different types of essential amino acids, and they include histidine, which is important for tissue repair and growth; isoleucine, necessary for energy regulation and muscle repair; leucine, which plays a crucial role in muscle protein synthesis, very important, more on that soon. You have lysine, essential for collagen production and calcium absorption. You have methionine, which supports healthy metabolism and tissue growth. And then you have phenylalanine, which is involved in the production of neurotransmitters like dopamine, for example. You have threonine, important for maintaining proper protein balance. You have tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin, a neurotransmitter. And you have valine as well, which aids in the coordination and repair of tissues, basically. Next, we're moving on to non-essential amino acids, which basically, they're called non-essential because the human body can synthesize them on its own, and it doesn't require them through the diet. While they're still important for various biological functions, the body can produce them as needed, therefore making them non-essential. And next, we have conditional amino acids, or CAAs. Okay, they're called conditional because their status as essential or non-essential can change depending on specific health conditions that person has or circumstances. Okay, so while under normal conditions, the body can synthesize these amino acids perfectly okay, and it doesn't need to intake them through your diet. During periods of illness, stress, or certain health conditions, your body may not be able to synthesize the amino acids by itself, so it needs to intake them through supplementation or foods, for example, okay? Therefore making it conditional because it depends on your body's current state of wellness. Okay, these amino acids serve various functions in the body, contributing to processes such as muscle growth, immune function, and the production of enzymes and hormones. They are crucial for overall health and well-being, as previously mentioned. Don't underestimate the importance of amino acids. However, I will say that like a BCAA supplement is probably not necessary. Okay, so if you have a pretty good balanced diet with an adequate amount of animal protein and a varied amount of animal protein, you're probably getting in all the essential amino acids that you require, therefore making a BCAA supplement completely futile. Because what's the point in supplying 5 out of 9 amino acids when you've already intaken all 9 of the essential amino acids through your, whole food diet anyway? Just makes it completely unnecessary. But that's a little side tangent. More on that on future episodes. That was the nutrition section of the recovery section. Now we're going to move on to rest and sleep. So getting adequate sleep to support your physical and mental recovery. So the general recommendations are for people aged 18 to 64 is 7 to 9 hours per night. Incorporate rest days also into your training plan. These allow your body to repair and adapt to the stress of regular training, especially marathon training, for example. One interesting thing about sleep is that it releases growth hormone. So when you hit the sack after a long day of a strenuous activity, your body finally gets to rest. Okay, during that sleep, your body releases growth hormone that repair cellular and tissue damage, for example, invigorate muscle growth and stimulate bone building within your body. This makes you better prepared for the workout the next day. So growth hormone, just to define it quickly, also known as GH or HGH, human growth hormone, is a peptide hormone produced by the pituitary gland in the brain. It plays a crucial role in stimulating growth, regulating various metabolic processes, and supporting the development and repair of tissues and organs throughout the whole body. Growth hormone is especially important during childhood and adolescence for promoting linear growth, but it continues to have essential functions like, as we get older and we venture into adulthood, including the regulation of metabolism, muscle bone health, and overall well-being. How do we optimize sleep? Optimizing sleep is essential for overall well-being and performance. Okay, here are some quick tips to help you optimize your sleep effectively. Okay, so to have a consistent schedule, for example, going to bed and waking up at the same time every single night is extremely important and can help your circadian rhythm achieve a good rhythm. This helps you regulate, it regulates your kind of like body's internal clock, and you'll have an easier time actually falling asleep if you go to bed at that time that your body's used to and waking up at, the same time every single day. For example, you want to wake up earlier. Okay, simple. You just got to go to bed earlier and you've got to get your brain used to going to bed at that particular time. So you say you go to bed at 10 and you wake up at 6 and you get 8 hours sleep. Okay, so you get a good amount of sleep. So your body knows to fall asleep at 10. So if you get into bed at that time, your body will know to put itself to sleep, and it will then know to wake itself up at 6 o'clock after you've had an adequate amount of sleep. Okay, it's not going to just keep you in bed till like 10 o'clock or something like that because it's slept enough. So it's probably just going to wake you up because it's the start of the day. It's recovered enough. It's slept enough. It's going to wake you up at that time. So if you get into that rhythm of going to bed early and waking up early, you'll be able to wake up earlier without feeling so groggy and tired and in need of a lion. Okay, you have to create a relaxing bedtime schedule as well. So getting in a calm state of mind before you're about to drift off to sleep is always highly important. Developing a calming routine before bed, such as reading, taking a warm bath, or practicing relaxation techniques such as meditation, can help you relax and therefore fall asleep. What people consider relaxing is obviously relative, so it depends on the individual. So just do whatever works for you, whatever helps you relax, whether it's having a bath with some like fancy bath bombs and candles and roses, or I don't know, stretching, doing exercise. Some people find that relaxing. That's their form of therapy. However, I probably wouldn't recommend that if you're trying to fall asleep because it's quite stimulating doing exercise. It's probably going to keep you awake, depending on if you burn yourself out, after which you probably will fall asleep quite easily if you're completely and utterly exhausted. However, that's a complete side tangent. I apologize for that. Okay, so next on the list is having a comfortable sleep environment. Of course, this is extremely important. Ensuring your bedroom is conducive to high quality sleep with a comfortable mattress, pillow, and appropriate room temperature, for example, and like blackout blinds as well, making sure the room is completely dark. Some curtains, for example, they're okay when it's actually dark, but when the sun rises, you can see the sunlight through the curtains. They're not particularly optimal for good quality sleep because especially in the summer, when the sun rises earlier, you're probably going to be woken up early by the sun as your eyes absorb the light, and then your brain, it's like, it's go times, wake up, baby. Let's get going. Next, very important. I'm sure everyone knew this was coming, but limiting your exposure to screens is extremely important. Avoid electronic devices with screens, smartphones, tablets, TVs, laptops, whatever it may be. Make sure to stop your usage about an hour before you actually go to bed. The blue light emitted can interfere with your sleep-wake cycle. For example, you can use blue light blocking glasses, or you can, change the setting on your phone, but I wouldn't recommend that. That's a bit of a cop-out. It's just like, oh yeah, don't worry, I use the blue light blocker on my iPhone, so I could just stare at it while I was in bed in the dark. Like, no. Just turn it off. Okay, so the next point is being mindful of your diet. So avoid large meals, caffeine and alcohol close to bedtimes as they can disrupt your sleep, especially caffeine and alcohol. Alcohol, reduces the ability to enter REM sleep and deep sleep, just ultimately providing you with a poorer night's sleep. And caffeine as well will prevent you from actually falling asleep in the first place and can also, prevent you from entering deep sleep. So yeah, your ability to recover and rejuvenate during your sleep even if you get the same amount of sleep, will be much less. Your sleep quality will overall be a lot lower under the influence of caffeine and alcohol close to when you actually sleep. All right. Now we're going to discuss supplements. This is part 4 of the Optimum Living show. So in my marathon training journey, the use of supplements has proved very effective for me personally. Despite my reliance on supplements, my diet was always paramount. I ensured to get a good nutrient balance, eat enough protein, eat enough vegetables, eat enough fruits, eat enough healthy fats, for example. Supplements, they're not gonna just like drastically improve your health if you take them. Okay, so like a shit diet, say with multivitamin, is still like a shit diet. Just because you're taking multivitamin, it doesn't offset the damage. Okay, so during prep, I'd use like protein powder, creatine, pre-workout from time to time, and some electrolyte powder as well, of course, for hydration purposes. Most of the time, I'd meet my protein requirement through animal-based sources of protein throughout the day, but often I drink a protein shake here and there, just for convenience sake and for assurance as well. So most of the time I'd meet my requirement, as I said, through animal protein, but on top I just like to have the protein shake just to ensure that I was 100% definitely meeting that protein requirement that I'd set for myself, which is around 200 grams of protein a day. It was just to kind of eliminate the variable that protein intake would be. For example, if I wasn't like progressing with my running or recovery or increasing muscle mass, I would always look to protein intake and see if that needs addressing. However, if that's always been fine and I have record through tracking my calories that I've always met the protein intake, then there's no cause for concern there. It eliminates that variable. Okay, so the protein shake mainly just for assurance, but other people it could be how they get most of their protein in. Okay, so I took as I said, I took creatine for a small boost in performance, as creatine provides you with more energy. So I did that before runs and before gym sessions. And the electrolyte powder, of course, is for hydration purposes, and it contains carbohydrates to improve my performance, or at least regulate it. So each individual supplement protocol will be different. At the end of the day, it's about what works for you, of course, what you enjoy and what your body benefits from. For example, plenty of avid runners and gym goers that I know never use protein powder as a source, as they get enough protein from their diet anyway. So it's just, completely unnecessary. Protein powder is generally used because it's a cheap, convenient way to get your protein in, basically. Relatively cheap anyway, but it's by no means absolutely necessary. If you don't have the funds for it and you'd rather spend it on whole foods, go for it. And there's always, some debate on the quality of protein powders and how good they are actually for you, because a lot of them have like sweeteners and stabilizers in them and emulsifiers, for example. But whey protein, it contains quite a lot of the amino acid leucine, so it's a good high quality source of protein, and your body should absorb it well. Just to dive deeper, since we're on the topic, into protein powders, just going to quickly define whey protein. So whey is a liquid that separates from milk during cheese production. The protein part of the whey is called whey protein. It is a complete high quality protein that contains all of the essential amino acids. In addition, it is very digestible and absorbed from your gut quickly compared with other types of protein. Because of this, most protein powders contain all EAAs, essential amino acids. However, some might only contain BCAAs. For example, I use a whey protein concentrate powder from Bulk, which it's a good high quality protein. It's like grass-fed whey protein, but it only contains the branched chain amino acids. So I believe that's like 5 out of 9 essential amino acids. That's not a concern. If you're having that protein, you're having it for the protein that's inside, and you'll hopefully be taking it alongside like a pretty whole diet. Okay, so you sourced all of your essential amino acids from various other food sources throughout your day, and you're not just relying on whey protein to get all of the amino acids in. That's probably a poor idea. Okay, what matters is the protein concentrate of the powder, not its EAA concentration. Okay, so if your diet is whole, containing various animal proteins, you should be fine, and just eliminates the need to concern yourself about the BCAA or EAA content of protein powders, for example. So on the subject of EAAs, essential amino acids, however, whey protein contains the most amount of the EAA known as leucine as previously mentioned, compared with other protein powders. Leucine is an amino acid that outperforms all other amino acids in muscle protein synthesis. And because of that, leucine is crucial for those wanting to regain lost muscle or perform better during their workouts. Okay, Whey has a 10% leucine content, making it a protein source with the highest amount of leucine. Okay, leucine is an essential amino acid that helps to promote muscle growth and reduce recovery time after exercise. Most other protein powders contain leucine, for example, casein, soy, but personally, I wouldn't recommend certain types of protein. But, my opinion is irrelevant, especially when we're discussing science. Whey protein isolate. You may see that in shops. You may wonder what the difference is between whey protein concentrate and whey protein isolate. Well, I'm here to just discuss that very quickly. So whey protein isolate is extremely similar to whey concentrate. It's only been through extra filtering just to increase its purity. This means that whey isolate is typically 90-95% protein, so it's pretty high up there, good concentration. All right. Whereas the whey protein concentrate tends to be around 75 to 80%, but of course it depends a lot on the type of protein that you're actually buying. All right. Loads of different types of whey protein. It's all over the place. So it just, entirely depends on what protein you're buying. So whey protein isolate has other nutrients removed, causing it to have less fat, fewer carbs, and therefore fewer calories as well than whey protein concentrate. So if you're looking for a premium whey protein with the highest concentration of protein per gram, whey protein isolate is your best option. Okay. So other forms of protein include casein protein. So casein is a type of protein found in milk, once again, making up about 80% of the content in cow's milk. It's a slow digesting protein and is often used as a dietary supplement. Okay. Casein forms curds in the stomach, leading to a slower and more sustained release of amino acids into the bloodstream. This makes it an ideal choice for people as like a nighttime protein drink, so they can take it before bed, and protein synthesis occurs overnight as the protein is digesting slowly and slowly releasing protein into the bloodstream. Okay, casein is also rich in amino acids, including leucine, and is commonly used to support muscle growth and recovery, of course. Okay, so next on the list we have collagen protein. So collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body and is found in the skin, the tendons, the ligaments, the bones, and other connective tissues. Collagen protein is typically derived from animal sources. For example, you have like bovine collagen, you have like marine collagen, bovine being from beef or cow, and then marine obviously being from the sea, fish in the sea, and it's used in dietary supplements. It's known to kind of hold potential benefits to the skin, joint health, and connective tissue supports. Okay, collagen protein supplements are often used to promote skin elasticity, reduce joint pain, and support hair and nail growth as well. Next on the list, you have your plant-based proteins. Okay, plant-based protein powders are derived from various plant sources and offer an alternative to animal-based proteins. Okay, while they can be a suitable choice for many individuals, plant-based proteins may not be as bioavailable as some of their animal protein counterparts, all right, due to a difference in like amino acid profile. They may be lacking a few essential amino acids. That's why you may hear that people on vegan diets, they've got to be careful with what they're actually eating, especially if they're trying to lift weights and, put on a lot of muscle. They've got to have an extremely diverse diet to make sure to intake all of the essential amino acids, okay? Because obviously the amino acid concentration in animal protein sources such as meats and fish is a lot higher than it is in, say, beans, soybeans, or like chickpeas or other plant-based sources of protein. All right. Here is a list of common plant-based protein powders and an explanation of their potential differences in bioavailability. Okay, starting with pea protein. So pea protein is derived from yellow split peas and is rich in essential amino acids, but may be lower in certain amino acids like methionine, which supports a healthy metabolism and tissue growth. Its bioavailability is good, but it may not match that of animal-based protein sources. Next on the list, we have rice protein. So rice protein is made from brown or white rice and is often considered lower in lysine, which is an essential for collagen production and calcium absorption, but higher in methionine. The amino acid balance may not be ideal for some individuals, but the rice protein can still be a decent option for some people. Right. Then you have soy protein. All right. Soy protein is a complete protein containing all the essential amino acids. It has good bioavailability, but may be less preferred due to some allergenic concerns and phytoestrogen content, which has been up for debate for a very long time. But some people don't really like the taste of it. Simple as that. Some people prefer whey protein. I have tried vegan protein. I believe I tried pea protein before, but it's just shocking. It's like dirt, basically. Whey protein is a lot more like a milkshake, obviously. Next on the list, you have hemp protein. Hemp protein is made from hemp seeds and provides a balanced profile of amino acids. Its bioavailability is generally good, but it may not be as rich in amino acids as other plant-based sources and the animal-based sources as well. Bioavailability differences arise from the amino acid consumption and digestibility of plant-based proteins. While they can provide sufficient protein for many people, they may require a more diverse dietary approach, to ensure a complete amino acid profile. Additionally, factors like anti-nutrients or fiber content in some plant-based sources can affect protein absorption and bioavailability. So best to be careful, best to do your research. There are, as we mentioned, some complete plant-based protein powders for you to intake to help you on your marathon training journey and recover adequately after runs. But overall, I would say animal-based protein powders like whey protein, casein, or collagen protein, for example, they tend to be more complete and have a better ability to keep your body in a constant state of protein synthesis and repair and recovery in general, just because of their more rich amino acid content, or they're richer in amino acids. Right, so next on the supplement list, we've already mentioned it. It's one of the most researched supplements, one of the most decorated supplements in the industry. Everyone uses it nowadays. We have creatine, So creatine stands as one of the most widely used and efficient supplements available, with a wealth of scientific research supporting its effectiveness. Multiple studies have consistently demonstrated that creatine supplementation can enhance strength, power, muscle size, and overall muscular performance. Creatine holds significant advantages for athletes, sports enthusiasts, and bodybuilders due to its primary role in enhancing energy production. While the body can naturally produce creatine, supplementation becomes necessary just because the body can't produce enough of it to have any significant benefit. So you've got to get it from an external source and unlock its performance boosting benefits, notably in terms of strength, power, and muscle development and performance. As we mentioned, this becomes especially pertinent in activities like sprinting, where it has the potential to improve overall exercise capacity and anaerobic performance. Moreover, creatine supplementation might aid in accelerating post-exercise recovery by mitigating muscle damage and inflammation associated with intense physical exertion. Supplementing with creatine has the potential to boost muscular endurance, enabling runners to sustain higher intensity efforts for a longer duration. This advantage becomes especially valuable during interval training or the demanding final stretches of a race, for example, of your marathon race. I took creatine on marathon day and, it was easier than I expected, to be honest. And that could have been to do with just my, the immense amounts of training I've done. Could have been to do with the fact that I took creatine on the day and pre-workout just to get my muscles and my mind numb to all the pain, just to power through it. But you never know. It definitely helped. I took probably around 10 grams of creatine before I started, and I was heavy on the creatine, leading up to the marathon day, because I wanted to get the muscles saturated with creatine, ensuring that I had adequate amounts stored in the muscles for optimum performance. Additionally, creatine plays a role in enhancing glycogen storage within muscles, a crucial energy source for endurance activities such as long-distance running. This capacity to delay the onset of fatigue contributes to an overall improvement in endurance performance. Creatine helps convert ADP, adenosine diphosphate, into ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, by donating a phosphate group to ADP. This process rapidly regenerates ATP, the primary energy currency of cells, allowing for quick bursts of energy during high-intensity activities like weightlifting or sprinting, for example. Adenosine diphosphate, or ADP, is responsible for storing and transferring energy in cells. When it receives an additional phosphate group, it becomes ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the primary energy currency of cells. So the conversion of ADP to ATP and vice versa allows cells to regulate and use energy efficiently in the body for various biochemical purposes, and processes. So creatine just helps in that conversion. it is extremely useful. I would definitely vouch for creatine, especially if you're training for a marathon, of course. All right, so next on the list, we've got every gym rat's favorite supplement. We have pre-workout. I've also titled this section pre-workout and caffeine as well, because most pre-workouts nowadays have pretty shite formulas, and the only useful thing within them is caffeine, okay? Because caffeine is ergogenic, meaning it reduces fatigue, enhances performance in general. All right, so caffeine is a stimulant. As we know, it's a popular supplement among athletes, and its use has prompted some organizations like the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or NCAA, to restrict its high dosage use. Okay, a stimulant, just to define it quickly, is a substance that increases alertness, energy, and activity in the body, often by stimulating the central nervous system. Caffeine is ergogenic. As I mentioned, it improves performance by acting on the central nervous system. It blocks adenosine, a neurotransmitter that promotes relaxation and sleepiness. By doing so, caffeine increases the release of other neurotransmitters like dopamine, enhancing alertness and focus, and reducing the perception of effort during exercise, for example. Very crucial point there, reducing the perception of effort. So when doing very high intensity exercise, caffeine almost kind of like, as I said earlier, just kind of blocks the pain. It just almost makes you not realize it when you're actually in that much pain, or it helps to at least, all right? Caffeine also stimulates the release of adrenaline, which can increase heart rate and blood flow to muscles, and the release of energy stores, providing a temporary boost in physical and mental performance, all right? Just to define ergogenic quickly, ergogenic refers to something that enhances or improves physical performance, typically in the context of sports, exercise, or athletic activities. Ergogenic aids, for example, are substances or techniques used to boost an individual's physical capabilities, endurance, and strength, or their overall athletic performance. These aids can include supplements, equipment, strategies, or interventions that aim to provide a competitive advantage or enhance physical capabilities during sports or exercise. Right. So caffeine and endurance training. All right. A comprehensive review of studies has shown that moderate doses of caffeine, ranging from 1.4 to 2.7 milligrams per pound of body weight, or 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight, can modestly enhance endurance. Okay. In a specific study, well-trained cyclists who ingested 100 milligrams and 200 milligram doses of caffeine combined with a carbohydrate electrolyte solution during late-stage exercise outperformed those who consumed only the carbohydrate electrolyte solution. All right. So furthermore, the cyclists who consumed the 200 milligram dose completed the time trial faster than those who consumed the 100 milligram dose. All right. Another line of research investigated the impact of coffee, known for its naturally high caffeine content. Studies suggest that both caffeine and caffeinated coffee offer similar benefits for improving endurance and exercise performance. All right. Caffeine and weight training. Ongoing research is shedding light on the use of caffeine in strength or power-based activities, although findings remain relatively inconclusive as of late. For instance, one study, 12 participants ingested either 1.4 milligrams of caffeine per pound of body weight, that's about 3 milligrams per kilo, or a placebo just before a bench press, all right? So they consumed this amount of caffeine per pound of body weight just before they were about to bench press. Those who consumed caffeine exhibited a notable increase in force and power output compared to those that took the placebo pill. Okay, similarly, another study involved 12 individuals who regularly consumed caffeine, showed that caffeine intake enhances mean power output and mean bar velocity during a series of bench press throws when compared to the placebo pill. Caffeine in those studies improved people's performance on the bench press. However, a well-designed, albeit small, study found that caffeine intake before a workout did not significantly impact muscle strength, as measured by hand grip strength in CrossFit athletes, for example. Moreover, a study investigating the influence of high-dose caffeine on maximum bench press strength in male athletes who regularly consumed coffee showed no significant improvements compared to a placebo. All right, so I'm always here to show both sides of the spectrum, and if I dig up studies that display one side of the story and then I find one that displays the other side of the story, I'm not just going to pick sides. I'm going to relay all the information that I find out. All right. So existing research suggests potential benefits of caffeine for power-based activities. Okay, though further research studies are 100% necessary so we can get a conclusive answer that determines whether it is beneficial to weightlifting performance. Okay, caffeine and weight loss. So caffeine is a prevalent component in weight loss supplements. Its mechanisms in the body include the stimulation of fat breakdown in fat cells, elevation of heat production, and heightened fat oxidation in individuals in various weight categories, including those with an average weight, those that are overweight, and those that are obese. All right. Additionally, caffeine has a modest impact on increasing daily calorie expenditure. All right. So when consumed before exercise, it can substantially enhance the release of stored fat, for example. A comprehensive analysis of studies revealed that the ingestion of 1.4 to 2.7 milligrams of caffeine per pound of body weight, notably amplified fat burning during physical activity, particularly among sedentary or untrained individuals. All right. It's important to note that while caffeine contributes to enhanced fat metabolism, there is no evidence that suggests that caffeine consumption alone leads to significant weight loss. When should you take caffeine? This is very important. A little bit of a tangent, but it's extremely important. So in the morning, the ideal time to enjoy your morning coffee can vary based on individual factors and personal preferences. Nevertheless, as a general suggestion, it's often recommended to wait around 30 to 60 minutes before taking any sort of caffeine, all right? Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist and associate professor at Stanford University School of Medicine, goes a step further, and he waits 90 to 120 minutes for his morning coffee. So he explains that he delays caffeine because one of the factors that induces sleepiness is the accumulation of adenosine in our system. So adenosine levels increase the longer we're awake. So early in the morning, they're likely to be low. All right. So your body also naturally produces higher cortisol levels in the morning, a hormone responsible for alertness. Waiting around 30 to 60 minutes allows these cortisol levels to start decreasing, potentially enhancing the wake-up effects of coffee. All right, so drinking coffee too soon after waking, when cortisol levels are already elevated, may diminish the desired energizing impact of coffee. So it's best to, almost let yourself wake up a little bit before you actually ingest any coffee. So I'd say an hour to an hour and a half before having your first coffee is fine. And anyway, it will go very quickly in the morning. You're a bit groggy, you're having a shower, you're getting ready to start the day. It'll probably go quite quickly. And most people, probably drink a coffee like an hour after they wake up anyway. I don't think anyone, I'm sure people do, but I don't know a lot of people that wake up and instantly the first thing they do is switch on the coffee machine as they get out of bed. Okay. Most people get ready first and then they have their coffee and head out and go to work or do whatever they need to do during the day. All right. So that was in the morning. Not in the evening though, because it will disrupt your sleep. Since caffeine is a stimulant, it can interfere with your sleep. Consuming coffee too close to your bedtime can make it difficult for you to actually fall asleep, and it will disrupt the quality of sleep that you actually get, inhibiting you from, reaching adequate stages of REM sleep or deep sleep. Okay. It's generally recommended to avoid caffeine consumption at least 6 hours before you plan to go to bed, because caffeine has like a half-life, I believe, of 5 to 6 hours. So you consume caffeine at 6 o'clock, you go to bed at 12 o'clock, there's still going to be half the amount of that caffeine that you ingested at 6 still in your system. Okay, so just be mindful of that. My caffeine intake personally during prep, so on a daily basis during marathon prep, I would have a cup of coffee in the morning and one around lunchtime as well, probably after lunch. However, I'd make sure not to ingest caffeine after 2 p.m. Okay, that was kind of like 1 or 2 p.m. That was like my cutoff point, just because I would go to bed usually around 9, from 9 to 11, between then. So yeah, I didn't want to interrupt my sleep. So if I had like a coffee at like 4, which, some people probably do, it would definitely interrupt my sleep and interrupt my ability to like fall asleep as well as the quality of sleep that night. So on the rare occasions, I'd use, a pre-workout supplement as well. I use the Optimum Nutrition kiwi flavor, I believe, just, regular standard pre-workout. It's pretty good, but it's just mainly like caffeine. So yeah, pre-workouts often contain high levels of caffeine and creatine, which, as we know, benefit performance. They're both ergogenic. So that was caffeine and pre-workout. So now we're going to move on to slightly, non-essential supplements, but just supplements that I thought were good for you to know a little bit about. Okay, so we have multivitamin / magnesium supplements. All right. Personally, during my marathon prep, I took a daily multivitamin and a magnesium as well in pill form, and I got them from Holland and Barrett. So they were quite high quality multivitamin and magnesium supplements. But I do believe that the quality doesn't differ too much between, say, like supermarket bought and health shop bought. The only difference is that the health shops think they can, they have some sort of like a privilege. They can like ramp up the prices because they're this sort of bougie little health store. So of course they're gonna, want to seem like they offer the superior formula. It may be true, to be honest, but I believe I read somewhere that the formulation is pretty similar and the desired benefit from each will be pretty similar as well. The only difference is the price tag. I mainly took these pills for like assurance to eliminate the variable that my health and training performance could be reduced due to a magnesium or vitamin, say, deficiency, just to kind of eliminate that. So if they were being reduced, I knew it wasn't my protein intake. I knew it wasn't my like vitamin or magnesium intake. It's good to eliminate as many variables as possible, okay? Just so you can properly figure out what's actually causing your performance to be reduced. Right, incorporating magnesium into your marathon recovery regimen can be vital due to its natural muscle relaxing properties. Magnesium plays a crucial role in muscle contraction, skeletal strength, and supporting the elevated oxygen consumption needed for athletic performance at high intensities. This supplementation can aid in counteracting fatigue and expediting recovery, making it a valuable addition to your post-marathon routine. While it is possible to get adequate amounts through food, this requires eating a nutrient-dense, balanced diet, which a lot of people, they find that quite difficult. Magnesium is widely distributed in plant and animal foods and is typically found in foods with a higher fiber content. All right, so the best food sources for magnesium include nuts, seeds like pumpkin and chia seeds. They're particularly high in magnesium. You have leafy green vegetables, fortified cereals, beans, whole wheat bread, avocados, potatoes, brown rice, milk, and yogurts. However, a study featured in the International Journal of Sports Nutrition examines the impact of 365 milligrams of magnesium supplementation. So just for reference, the NHS recommends 300 milligrams a day for men and 270 milligrams a day for women. So they examined the impact of 365 milligrams of magnesium supplementation on marathon runners who are not deficient in magnesium. In comparison to the placebo group that did not receive any supplementation, those athletes who were supplemented did not exhibit elevated levels of magnesium in their blood or muscles. Consequently, the researchers observed no significant effects on marathon performance, muscle damage, or post-exercise muscle recovery. The outcome is likely because the runners had significant magnesium levels at the study's outset. So in summary, unless a clinical deficiency of magnesium is present, supplementing with it may not be deemed necessary. It might be more advisable to prioritize dietary sources rich in magnesium. Of course, before taking a magnesium supplement or a multivitamin supplement or an omega-3 supplement or a vitamin D supplement, whatever it may be, it's important to focus on diet first in taking whole, nutrient-dense foods before you start taking pills. That's always been the case. I believe that's extremely important, After all, most dietary sources of magnesium consist of healthy nutrient-rich foods that also supply a vital balance of macronutrients, micronutrients, and antioxidants, which can aid in both pre- and post-exercise nutrition. However, magnesium's significance should not be overlooked when crafting your pre- and post-race marathon plan. It is important, extremely important. Right, multivitamins real quick. It's important to remember that an unhealthy diet with a multivitamin is still an unhealthy diet. As I've said, a multivitamin cannot in any way replace a healthy, well-balanced diet. The main purpose of a multivitamin is to fill nutritional gaps and provide only a hint of the vast array of healthy nutrients and chemicals found in food. It cannot offer fiber, for example, or flavor and enjoyment of foods, so keep an optimal diet. Always. However, multivitamins can play an important role when nutritional requirements are not met by food. But still, that does not mean eat burgers all day and have a multivitamin and you'll be fine. You've still eaten the burgers, okay? You've still done that damage to your body. Having a multivitamin is not going to do jack to repair it, right? So if you eat a healthy, nutrient-dense, balanced diet, a multivitamin is not necessary when in marathon prep, in my opinion. Okay, so that is the end of the very first episode of the Optimum Living podcast. This was the first part installment of a 2-part series covering the basics of marathon preparation. In this episode, we've covered 4 out of the 8 subtopics categorized by me. Join us next time in the second installment of this series, where we traverse the remaining subtopics, exploring the equipment necessary for marathon training, the benefits and drawbacks of recreational and excessive endurance training, my own personal marathon training journey, and discussing the latest literature and exploring interesting studies relating to marathon preparation and endurance sports in general. I do hope you have enjoyed. Until next time, goodbye.